Welcome ICS4C folks for what I believe is the last lesson of the entire semester, the entire year. This is it. I'd like to say that we're saving the best for last, but I think this will be pretty short. This idea of connecting our GUI elements and objects. Um, Almost a little bit of a sermon, a lecture, I guess. Uh, we'll show you a few things, but that's about it. I think you should have this and then some code as well, both some JavaScript and some HTML that you're going to be goofing around with, and I'll be talking about. Um, the basic building blocks of all our code is objects. When we created an input text box or radio button, these were HTML input element objects. That's not very good grammar, objects. We can see all the data and methods associated with an object by console.log. So I'm going to do this on JSBin. I'm going to make a little tiny input type equals text, and then we have, I want to have an ID equals who cares, and close that, and then notice that it's showing up right away over there. And in my JavaScript, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to grab it, whatever equals document dot get element by ID, and what did I call it? I called it who cares. So that grabs that object, and now if I wanted to see what it's about, I'm just going to console log it. And then it prints out a whole bunch of stuff. And look at all this stuff. Because this is an HTML object, there are a lot of attribute and value pairs. Attribute and value pairs. Add event listener was something we did, remember, and that was a method. There's the method right there, and it talks about all, and there's all of the stuff that has been written about this type of object. And if you're not sure whether something that you've got in your document is an object or a something else, and remember, I can start grabbing stuff like right there, the value. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it. There's so many. Let's see if I know my alphabet here. Value VVVV in here. There's so much stuff. Not sure if I'm going to be able to see the value. Look at all. See, these are all attributes that are built in. I'll let me print it off. What is it going to be? Notice we never set a value. I could if I wanted to, I suppose. Value equals hi. And then see it says hi there. And so now if I clear this and run it, it'll go. It actually has to take it takes a second. It's giving me the entire thing. It thinks that I'm still pressing whatever. So let me refresh this just to remind JSBin what it's doing. Okay, so I'm going to run that, and then it's just going to give me the value. If I printed off just the whatever and got rid of the dot value, it would print off all that stuff. But if I wanted to know what type a certain variable is, remember there's this type of keyword, whatever, and console.log type of whatever.value. So then we could know what we need to be doing with it in our program. So I'm going to clear that and run that. So it's saying that whatever is an object, and then type of whatever.value is a string, right? And so we can make those decisions. We could use the type of to figure out what we should be doing in our code. not much more I wanted to say about that, except for it says, when collecting data from a user by a GUI, it makes sense for us to use our own object. We covered object-oriented programming concepts in Unit 2, and we'll review a few items here as the concepts connect to GUI and HTML forms. So the idea is, you know, in the last code, and this is the similar code that we're going to be using, we're building the rock star, right? We're building a rock star, but then we had all of these attributes that went with our rock star. Well, those were variables that were just kind of all over the place. It might make sense for us to collect all the data up and put it into our own object called a rock star object, right? That we write. We provide the code. We decide what things we want to do with our rock star. That's the idea. It says line 6 through 12 of the sample code, we show a literally defined object. So let me show you that. In the sample code, the first bit right there is an object with no class. So remember, the curly brackets show an object, and here are the attributes and their values. Attributes and values that are associated with the slash object. This is an object. And notice that in here it printed all that stuff out to the console. And when I loaded that, even though the console wasn't there, press F12, it actually printed off all those attributes for that object. And notice the very familiar dot notation. Object dot whatever. Object dot whatever. And we've been doing this all the way through the semester, right? This object has 4 attribute pairs, no methods, right? 4 attribute and value pairs, no methods. Remember, methods are functions that are built into an object. Remember, the curly brackets showing an object. Square brackets is an array, remember, and we use the period to access the values. Okay, so that's a little reminder of a literally defined object. So that's one. That's one object, the slash object, and we could do stuff. We could change the values if we wanted to, and we print it out to the console to show that that works. More importantly is this idea of a class. And a class, and it's down here, this is kind of the main program. It made the slash object there. This here is our rockstar class. All right, and I'm gonna fold up a bunch of stuff just so you can see what's going on. And remember, in a class, we can use as many definitions to make as many objects as we want. This is a rockstar class. We could make, you know, 1 or 2 or none or 17 or 7,000. It doesn't matter. Rockstars. Once we set up, this is the template. This is the template. And so this template, you see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attributes. And their values are actually grabbed from the document right here. This dot name equals document get element ID dot. This goes to the web page and grabs the name. Notice that our object up here, our slash object, didn't do that. That just was kind of like review. Here, what I'm doing is I'm going to my web page and I'm grabbing all this stuff. Notice some of them, like for instance the sex of our rockstar, has a little code set up to it. The idea is sex, if it's checked, it returns a value of M, or not, returns the value of F. Notice that we could have just returned the value of temp sex I dot value, right? We could have done that, but this isn't the way we chose to do it. This way we chose to have a little if statement to determine the sex. Great, fine. Let's get back to the note here, just so I know I'm not missing something. After writing this code, we need to create objects. So right now, remember, this code, it sets up the template, but it's not used. So where is this template actually used? It's right here. And this code creates a rockstar object called first. And notice that all the stuff just gets logged to the console once we make it. So I'll show you that that works actually. Lead singer. And so there was our object /M USA guitar. That was our object, and then this is our object that we made, and using our Rockstar class. Rockstar was the class, and first was the object, and that's grabbed all that stuff from the web page. Back to the note. This class has 5 attribute value pairs, no methods. You say, well, that's kind of strange because it looks like there are functions all over the place in this code. And there are, except for these functions are just built in to the class to determine the attributes. If it were a method that were associated with the object, it would look something like this. Okay, and this wouldn't be there. All right, now, I don't want you to goof up your code, so Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, fix it. So this is a function that's built in, but it wouldn't be a function that would work. I think that's the next point. There are functions built in that help determine the value of the attributes, but these aren't methods of the Rockstar class. That is first.getCountry or first.getSex wouldn't work. And if I showed you that, I'll show you that actually. Why not? In my code, if I added the line console.log first.getCountry and tried to do that, right? Because that's what it looks like if we're accessing a method of that object. And we've done this all the time, like get element by ID. That was a method of the document object here. Well, so why wouldn't that work? Well, it's because getCountry isn't a function. It's built in to the code, but it's not built into the class of the object itself. So if I show you that, I will get an error, I believe. No, maybe I didn't. Oh, I have to submit. Blah, blah, and yeah. First.getCountry is not a function. So, well, isn't it a function? Isn't it right there? Well, it is, but it's not associated with the first object because this is built into the class, not the object itself. That's a very subtle point. Don't worry about it too much. What's left? That wouldn't work, and I showed you that. Again, remember that once we retrieve the data into our JavaScript, we can do anything with it. Here we just print it out to the console to prove that it worked. Usually we hit a submit or save button, and then we can have a permanent copy of our work, or we print it and publish it to a web or whatever. Unfortunately, we won't get to this point in our course. We won't be able to save files. Okay, if we had another week or another unit, certainly we could probably do that. But for our sake, what we want to do is be able to grab the stuff from the web page, make an object, and then use the object to do some processing. The lesson to remember here is that objects allow us to place all our data and actions in one container, and this is a very common theme in programming across many languages and platforms. Very common is the dot notation that we are used to. In our program, it was first.name, or we saw document.getElementsById, etc. So this whole thing, it's important for us to be able to make an object so all the stuff about our rock star is kind of in one place, and the one place was the first object, or we could make as many as we could have a second, a third. We could have an array of rock star objects. Once we've written the code, we could do anything that we wanted to. And one of the points is, of course, somebody else has written the code for things like input boxes and radio buttons and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we have to be able to understand how to use those objects. And one of the ways to do that is by writing our own objects. So I think there's a little exercise today, and then one last thing to add to your character stuff, and then the end of the unit is upon us, and then the end of the course is followed closely by. All right, have fun with that.